Are you tired of your robots in Robo Rumble 2 just being boxes with no detail? Well, that's where this guide comes in. In this video, I will be showing you how to make your robot look better. Not how to make them fight better, but look better. I will be going through techniques and some examples on how I personally make my robots look better, and hopefully you can apply them to your designs. So without further ado, let's get going. So the first technique that I'm going to be showing you today is the fillet. The fillets are very, very important if you want to make your robots look presentable and look very, very clean. And it all has to do with this beautiful shape right here, the fillet. It is a very smooth shape, and it is perfect for lining corners inside of little holes here. So you see I have this box here, and inside I have it filleted in. And it looks very nice. It's a lot better than just flat edges. And it makes it look so much nicer. I have some on the outside as well. So it provides like a little curve here. That's another thing that can be used for. And another kind of fillet you can use is using these things. Half cylinders. If I just make this a little bit more obvious, in here there is a little red half cylinder between these two panels. And what this does is that it makes a more smooth transition for angled pieces. So if you see that, it's very smooth and it looks very, very nice. I use this technique a lot, and I recommend other people do it because it just looks better than just having it go straight to angled. And it makes it look, again, so much nicer. So fillets are the first or the main thing that you need to get down if you want to make your robots look better. But there are other design quirks as well, and I will be going into some of them next. Now, the second thing that I will be showing you today is the vents. Now, vents are very nice because they help add a little bit of depth to some robots. And it makes them look a bit more real, if you know what I mean. Now, the neat thing about vents is that there isn't just one way to do them. There are so many different ways you can make vents. You can have them be angled, you can have them be straight like I have them here, you can have them be so many different designs. Hell, sometimes you can make your own like little pattern for them. And it'll look really nice. And you can just do whatever you want. It's really fun experimenting with vents. What I have right here is a more standard example where it's a custom shape. It is literally just a bar with a bunch of bars coming across it that's clipped into these cubes. If you want to copy the design, I have the design right here. And so, yeah, vents are a pretty easy way of making robots look better. But one thing I do recommend doing is putting them in places that make sense. Fillets go a long way when they're on top of something like a motor or an ESC, because usually those need to be cooled. So I recommend having them like here, like I have a purple cat in here, for example. And it's just being protected by the vent. And it just makes it look really cool. So that's what the main thing I recommend for vents. But again, there are so many different ways to do these. And it makes your robots look so nice. There really isn't a point of not using these. Now here is a tip that I have for weapon bars. It can be used for things other than weapon bars, but I think they look very nice with weapons. And this is pocketing. It's pretty simple. It's just a block of material that has a little bit shaved out on the inside here. So you can see that there's a bit of depth here, with these blocks here being a bit smaller than the ones out here. It provides a good amount of depth to a robot. It gives it a bit more depth. And just makes it the weapons look a little more detailed, a little more proper. And you can also fillet them like I've done here. So yeah, pocketing is something that I rarely recommend. Obviously, you cannot do it on some designs, but there are some designs where I think having some pocketing really makes the robot stand out and makes it look so much nicer. It's just more appealing to the eye. I'll be showing some examples down the line of some pocketing on some robots that aren't weapon bars, but I think this is a pretty good example. If you want to know how I made this, I had put some cubes on the inside, lined them with cubes on all the outsides, and I made the weapon teeth out of cubes and triangles, and I filled in the insides. If you want to use this weapon bar, go for it. It is a pretty nice design, and it actually hits pretty hard. So yeah, that's about it for pocketing. Moving on to the next one. So this next concept is one that's very, very simple, and yet I recommend that everyone do it. Custom shape decals. Now, RR2 has its own built-in decals here, and some of them are pretty nice. The biohazard symbol is very cool. It has a bunch of sponsors to the motors that are actually used in the game, and just a lot of other really cool things. The classic goblin mouth. It's just very nice. But the problem is with using these, is that if you use them a lot, your robots start to blend together and look a bit samey. And this is where custom shapes come in. Now, all of these designs I have made myself, except for this. These eyes I borrowed from one of Player But Not's robots. But these I made myself. So in here, there's a custom shape folder, and you are able to make shapes in it, obviously, and you can use them to make any decal that you want. So what you do is you make your design, and when you have to make a second layer, and make the second layer as thin as it possibly can be. And this will make it look more like a decal. You can see it's very, very thin here. And then there are a few materials that you can make these out of. What is not allowed is you cannot make them out of materials like hardox, steel, or titanium. That is illegal and it's not impossible to do in real life, but in this game it provides unnecessary strength. And if you enter an official tournament with a robot with metal decals, you will be declined. So the two ones that you really want to use are decoration and vinyl. The difference between them is it looks slightly different. It's very, very subtle, but you can see the decoration is a little bit darker than the vinyl. And so you can pick whichever one you want depending on what material you're using. Really, it doesn't matter. They weigh the same. It's more just giving you some options. And the one thing that I use them for a lot is to make letters, because there are no stock letters in the game. And so we have to make our own. So here's one that also highlights another cool thing about the custom shape builder. You can turn the snap off here by pressing this arrow here. And you don't have to stick to the grid. You can see I'm moving this much smoother than with snap on. And that just gives me a bit more control. That's how I made the cross section here on the A, and how I got it really close. You can't actually have the custom shapes touching each other because the game does not like it, and if you try to do it, it just reverts your progress. So try your best to have it be just barely not touching, and from far away, it looks fine. So that's the main thing I recommend using custom shape decals for, but again, you can use them for anything. Again, when I show some examples of robots that I've made, I have a lot of different robots with custom shaped decals. Some of them even use the stock shapes. In fact, let's just get over that right now. With the shapes, you can compress them down to be very, very thin. And with these, you can also make them decoration in vinyl. You can make them whatever color you want. And you can make shapes out of these too. I usually flip-flop between the custom shapes and the stock shapes. It just mainly depends on what I'm building. If I'm making something a bit more square, I usually make a cube and make it really thin. But if I'm using something like these lightning bolts, which are a lot of complex geometries, I would just use a custom shape, especially for lettering and these eyes here. But yeah, that's about it. Decals are very, very important, obviously. And you can do so much with these. Your creativity can just run wild. You can do whatever you want. And these ones I really, really, really recommend you do. So now we're going to get into some examples of robots that I have made. With this robot here, Tiny Inconvenience, I wanted to highlight its forks. Because forks are another cool way of making your robot look very cool. And this design right here is one that I came up with myself, and is one that I use very, very frequently with a lot of my builds. It is just a stick with a stock wedge at the end with the wedge sides. Now these are really cool because they're obviously very, very low, but they just look very nice. You can put different little things here. Like with this example, I have some ridges on it, which make it pretty cool. Back here, I have some wedges here that kind of provide bracing to it. Have it on all sides. Makes it feel a bit more real as well. It makes it a bit stronger. And the wedge sides are very, very important. These things help deflect HSs and other spinners and help keep more of the fork on the ground. Because if you make them right, you can have pretty much all of this fork scraping the ground. So even if they come at you from here, they won't be able to get underneath you. I did not do it on this one because I was lazy. But here's some forks. Now there are also multiple ways to mount the forks as well. One of the things that we do are the stock hinges. Obviously this is a featherweight, so obviously that's not going to work. But something like this, where you can just mount a little wedge on it, and this works. This part here hinges. You can see it's hinged on the back here, and it works. The problem is that these are very heavy. And so one thing that and also they're really big and can be a bit of an eyesore. And so what we usually do, and what I did on this bot, is use motors. This is a tiny little N20 motor connected to the fork. And this little motor has an ESC and a battery going to it, but they don't do anything. What this does is that it acts like a free hinge with limits. So if I go into controls here, you can see this, and I have the limits enabled, so I can choose where it stops and where it starts. And this is really, really useful, and it just makes them look so much nicer. It's up to personal preference. They both have their pros and cons as well. One thing I didn't mention about the stock ones is a certain little thing that it has called the spring. And what this does is that it keeps the wedge, it keeps it around where it is, but it can still be moved. What this is used for is to like push the forks into the ground. You can see that the spring is so strong that on a tiny little featherweight, it's just lifting my wheels off the ground. On a heavy weight, these are very, very good. Personally, I prefer the motor technique because it just makes it look a bit more ambiguous and a bit more realistic. In real life, you wouldn't need to use the hinge pieces. You can just have a little hole in your robot with an axle in it, and it would just rotate on that axle. And this is just kind of replicating that. But again, there are multiple ways to do these. You can do so many different fork designs. Yeah, you can just do whatever you want with them. And that's kind of the beauty with the forks. So here is my example of one of my robots with a lot of the traits that I have gone through in this video. This is Lovesick, my 4-wheel drive vertical spinner. It uses a lot of the techniques that I have shown in the past. I will go over a few of them. Right away, you can see I have the half cylinder right here on the back, which provides a very smooth finish on the back here. Same with these wheel guards. The belt guards are very, very smooth because I have little half cylinders in here to bridge the gaps. It just makes it look very, very smooth. I'm also using that technique on the front wedge to have a more subtle, more curved design here. I'm even using it around here to have like a little curved end. I'm even using it for the weapon support, but with a full sphere instead of a half one, so that I can mount the weapon on it. This is something that I do a lot, and a very, very popular design for weapon supports. But the main reason I wanted to show you this robot was because, remember when I was talking about pocketing being useful on things, not just on weapons? And this is the best example that I have. The top plate here is a little pocketed, and it has so much depth in it. I have a bunch of little vines around everywhere. These are custom pieces. Inside of it, I have little custom-shaped flowers that I made myself. They're a little bit rough, but I wasn't very good at custom shapes when I first made this. I have them on the side here with more vines, more rough pieces. I have a heart custom shape. I can thank these for my friend Lars. They are in his bot base in the RR2 server. But this is the main reason I wanted to show you this, is because of the pocketing. Because again, I see no one in the RR2 server do this, but I think it looks so, so good. And I think that everyone should do this, because it just makes your robots look so beautiful. Well, this is our example, and this is where I'm going to end the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any ideas for other tutorials that I can make, please give me a shout, and I can probably do it. And also join the RoboRumble 2 Discord server. It will be in the description if you're seeing this and you are not in the server. And yeah, goodbye, and have a good one.